Kip, what's going on, brother? Back for another Ask Me Anything.
COVID style.
What is COVID style? If you had to define COVID style, what would you? Just remote. That's it. Is this any different than before COVID-19? Yeah, I was going to say. It's always
changed.
This way.
Yeah, nothing has changed in the world of Order of Man and Iron Council. It is business as usual.
Yeah.
Business focused on improving the lives of our fellow, men.
Of everybody. Just everybody.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, that because I've had people ask me about my business and how it's changed with Order of Man. I'm like, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed with Order of Man. Nothing's changed on the home front. My kids have been homeschooled for the past 10 months. Exactly. I work at home and I have for years. Most of what we do is all digital. So we're pretty fortunate in that nothing has changed. I will say, I know a lot of guys are having a hard time. And have you seen the numbers in the Iron Council with our financial assistance fund? Oh my goodness. It's amazing. So we put out this call for those of you guys who don't know, we have the Iron Council, which is our exclusive brotherhood. And it's a membership. It's a paid membership. But I knew people were going to be struggling, and Rex Huston reached out and he said, hey, you should consider starting a financial assistance fund. So that's a good idea. We should do that. So I put out a call. I said, hey, if you want to cover somebody's membership because you're in the position to do so, let us know. And that way, if somebody's having a financial hardship during this time, we can make sure that existing members don't leave the Iron Council during this difficult time. If you need it. If there's one time in your life where you actually need what we have, it's right now, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't want people to leave. So anyways, I want to say 75 to 80 memberships covered at this point, and then, or enough funded to cover that many memberships. And then I want to say maybe 10 or so members have taken us up on the offer for some financial assistance. So it's pretty powerful to see how guys are stepping up and helping each other. So if there's any positive, and there's a lot of positive that we've seen over the past several weeks with coronavirus fallout, it's not just in the Iron Council, but in general. I mean, people are supportive and helpful, and companies are doing amazing things and putting out products. It's just that will help, and donating. It's just been extremely, extremely inspiring to see how people rally together in difficult times. And it's important too that we have difficult times, because in easy times, everybody's nitpicking each other and arguing over stupid things that aren't relevant. And now when it gets difficult, it's like, oh, okay, let's actually focus on the real things. Let's have some empathy towards other people, and let's serve each other, which is actually really nice to see.
Yeah, this is what we should be doing anyway.
I know you hate to see it come up in a situation like this.
Yeah.
I was also going to tell you, Kip, I like to see that you have Order of Man approved apparel on today.
Yep.
This is our Tuesday or Wednesday. What is it? Tuesday. As of the recording, I guess, our Tuesday uniform. So if you need some Order of Man merch, here you go. I've got some new hats being designed right now that are coming out as well.
Store.orderofman.com.
Yes, sir.
You guys that want to know, you can look like us, and you can join our morning phone call when I roll out of bed and say, hey, Ryan, what are you wearing?
That's right. We'll give you the number for that. Just go ahead and flash your phone number across the screen there, Kip, and let people call you. And don't put my number. I know it's April Fool's today as of this release. Do not be putting my number out into the world or anything like that.
We should have planned something.
Maybe I do have something planned. I'm not going to tell you if I do. You'll find out in the next 24 hours. Me, man.
I'm the guy that goes halfway through April's Fools, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, I'm not really good at being on top of that stuff.
Be prepared, gents, because somebody's going to try to get you today. So might be us, might be somebody else. You just never know. Keep your guard up.
Yeah, totally. Ironically enough, our first group of questions come from the Iron Council, which we talked about earlier. To learn more about that, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. And Marty Miller's first question was, we've kind of answered a little bit, but let's maybe add a little to it. What do you see as positive outcomes of COVID-19?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad he asked that question. For sure. I mean, it's the fact that people are supportive and that people are helping each other. And oops, hold on. I hit the wrong button here. Okay, there we go. People are helping each other. People are stepping up. I've seen a lot of men return to placing the emphasis and the value on their families and making sure that they make their kids and their wife a priority. So, it's times like these that our priorities change. We start to recognize and realize how important some of these priorities are, or some of these things that we've put off in the past. So I think having a little bit of a wake up call is good from that standpoint, so that we can see what actually is important and start placing our emphasis and our time and attention and resources on those things that really are important.
Totally. I think and this may not be applicable to you as much, Ryan. You mentioned this earlier that you guys already homeschool your kids, but I assume, or at least this is for us, that our involvement in our kids' education is drastically increased. Where it wasn't, you ship them off to school. Now it's like, okay, you have these like our kids are officially back in school remotely. They have Zoom meetings throughout the day. They have assignments. Everything's online. And so mom and dad's having to kind of step up and be more involved than we have been in the past. So I think that's a good thing. And I think the other thing, and I don't want to downplay this, because I get that, people are suffering, or other people listening may have had someone already, pass away, you know what I mean, from this virus. So I don't want to downplay that, but in the grand scheme of things, this is kind of a lightweight evaluation of how well prepared we are. This could be substantially worse. Yeah. And so I think that's another positive thing, is saying, okay, well, how well prepared are we for an outbreak of a virus like this? If it was more dangerous, if all of us were considered at high risk, that would change everything. Right? If we were all at high risk, that would drastically change the game a little bit. And so I kind of like the evaluation that this has brought to the table in regards to how prepared I am for such a thing if it were more serious.
That's a good point. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people won't do anything about it, right? Because it doesn't affect them as harshly. Maybe they don't know anybody who's been affected by coronavirus directly or passed away. Maybe they haven't lost their job. And so I think a lot of these individuals will just continuing the default, the status quo, and they won't do anything about it. So yeah, I like that point. Use this moment as an opportunity to grow, to expand, to get better, to make yourself more capable, more prepared. Don't let this moment pass you by without considering, are you, like you said, are you prepared for these types of situations and encounters and others that will inevitably rise as well?
Yeah, totally. All right, next question. Jamie Janui. Jamie, I'm sorry. Once you and your wife got back together after your separation, what do you think was the most important aspect to focus on after taking care of yourself?
I think a lot of that begins to fall into play. I think it's just by default. Like the more you take care of yourself.
By taking care of yourself, okay.
Yeah, the more you take care of yourself, the more capable you are of helping others. So, the biggest thing I think, outside of just improving your fitness and your nutrition and your planning and your goal setting and your career aspirations and a hobby and having a skill set and all these other things that you may be working on, which is, again, how you improve yourself. Essentially, it's physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I mean, you look at those four key areas, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That's how you take care of yourself. Outside of that, open communication is huge. And then just learning to trust, again, that's actually really hard, is giving your spouse the benefit of the doubt and just learning to trust again. Now, I will say, when I say that, my wife and I had zero infidelity issues. That wasn't the problem. But there was still some trust issues, because she didn't trust me to respond correctly or healthy or positively when she had something that she needed to address. And she was right in feeling that way. I felt like I had some animosity towards her. I haven't talked about this a whole lot, but I did have some animosity towards her, in that for a long time it was hard for me to not forgive, but just to trust her enough that she wouldn't bail if things got hard. Yeah. And that's a lot of the way I took it when I went through our separation. Yeah,
because your commitment, your commitment to one another gets questioned when you get separated. You're like, okay, wait a second, like we were on the ledge of letting this thing fall apart. So now it almost makes you a little gun shy.
Oh, totally.
Moving forward of, how strong really are we, or how committed are we to this thing?
Right. Yeah. So I thought, if we got into a disagreement or an argument, that, she would leave, or she would come to the conclusion that it was a bad idea to get back together. So that was a very difficult thing for me. The only thing I can say is you just work through it with open communication. You trust. And the question is, how do you develop more trust? You be more trusting. I mean, I wish
Yeah.
there was a better answer, but you just give them the benefit of the doubt and you trust and you just let it ride. That's what you have to
Yeah.
do, because you're never going to be confirmed. It's never going to be confirmed to you that everything's okay, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you may have valid reasons not to, but you
Oh, for
almost
sure.
have to
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, almost have to do it anyway. If you don't mind me sharing, I went to a funeral this past weekend. It was really one of my good friends from high school. His dad passed, and his dad was kind of, we talk about this, us leveling up in ways that we provide that fatherhood and, kind of some, that example to young men that are surrounding. And he was that way for me when I was in high school. And I remember, and you LDS guys listening will make sense of this, but when I was 18, I was getting ready to get ordained an elder. And that kind of happens when we turn 18. And he asked me, he's like, "Hey, who's gonna ordain you?" And he's like, "Is going to be your dad?" And I go, "My dad? I mean, he never goes to church, and he hasn't been spiritual and going to church for a long time." And I was meeting about my dad in that moment of like, yeah, right, not him, right? And Wayne Boucher was his name, and Wayne says, "You know what? Come here," and he handed me some scriptures, and he says, "Read this passage." And I won't get into the actual scripture itself, but in that passage, this young man had his father kind of give up on him a little bit, like murmur and complain and whatever. And this young man knew what to do. He got guidance and direction in regards to what to do. And when he got that guidance and direction, he went back to his dad and asked his dad for spiritual guidance of how he should address the situation, despite the fact that the father was complaining and, was kind of quote unquote not in the right state of mind. He went back to his dad and asked for guidance and direction. And by doing so, it put perspective back on his father of like, whoa, you know what? It elevated him and inspired him to lead. And I think, to your point, Ryan, that can happen in our relationships where, maybe your wife has no reason to trust you to preside, but by her going out on the limb and giving you that opportunity, that allows you to elevate into that position and creates that opportunity for you to take it on, right? And do the right thing. And I think sometimes we just need to believe in people a little bit, have a little bit of faith, and show them some respect and lack of judgment, and give them the opportunities to elevate themselves.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think giving another individual trust is actually an element of leadership, right? So if you give somebody a task or assignment at work, and you say, "Here's your task, here's your assignment or project that I'd like you to fix or do or work on," and they come to you and say, "Well, can you help me? And can you teach me all these things? Can you show me exactly what needs to be done?" And you say, "No, I trust you to make a good decision. I trust you to put together a plan and a process." And you let that person kind of tread water a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Kind of scramble around to get things figured out, and don't immediately throw them the life preserver and rescue themselves and rescue them for them. They'll get strong. They'll develop. They'll get their feet under them, and they'll realize what it is they need to do. So stepping away and stepping back and just giving people some credibility and some element of trust is actually a leadership principle that you can apply, and it allows other people to step up and to lead and to grow and develop the way that they need to. And, specifically with the relationship with my wife and I, we both had room to grow and develop. So I had to give her the space to do it, and she had to give me the space to do it. And we do that by giving each other some mutual trust and credibility in each other.
Cool. All right, there you go, Jamie. Tyson Junkers, what are some great ways to wake yourself up and get out of bed early in the morning? My alarm wakes me up, but recently I feel like I just need a bucket of water dumped on me to get out of bed. I can't blast music or turn on the lights since my wife is right next to me.
If you do that, then you'll guaranteed to get out of bed because you don't want to wake her up. So just have your music as loud as you can, and if you don't get to it in 5 seconds, you're going to get in trouble.
Mad scramble to the dresser,
That's right,
yeah.
Man. That'll get you up. No, I saw this question, and I get it. I don't really fall into this boat, but I do get it. And I've been in this boat in the past of like not being able to get up, and I feel like I have to drag myself out of bed, and I'm not motivated. For me, the biggest reason why is because I had no plan the next day.
Or the day before, you mean?
that day, that morning, right?
Yeah.
So if I have to, if today we're recording this on Tuesday, so I wake up tomorrow morning, if I don't have a plan right now already in place for Wednesday morning, then it's going to be harder for me to get out of bed.
Yeah.
So that tells me I need to plan and be excited about everything I'm doing, which is why I use my battle planner. I go through every single day and I plan out my day, but actually it starts the night before. And I've talked about this before. It starts the night before. When I finish my day, I go through and I start writing down next day's workload, next day's tasks and assignments and the things that I need to do. So that way, when I get out of bed, I know, hey, I've already got things to do. Like there's no guesswork about what needs to be done. I'm excited. I'm motivated. I'm ambitious about what's going to happen. My workouts are already planned. My clothes are already laid out. Everything is done the night before. So there's no guesswork about what's going to happen that next morning. Because look, if you don't have a plan and you don't have things that need to get done, you're going to sleep in.
Because you have no reason to get up.
There's
I mean,
no
you're
reason.
like, oh, I'll just do it later. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would suggest that you really start planning your day out the night before and have your workouts done, your clothes laid out, your actions that you need to get done, have the meeting notes ready for whatever meetings come up, have everything blocked out the way that it needs to be blocked out and organized. And look, and if you're doing that and you're still not motivated about getting out of bed, then you've got to find some meaning and significance in the work you're currently doing. Maybe that ties back into your vision.
Yeah.
Maybe it ties into some major objectives that you want to accomplish. So you tie it back into that. And if you're still not feeling it, then I think you really ought to question the direction of your life. I went downstairs this morning and I watched a little cartoon. It was a little short cartoon on Disney Plus with my kids. And it was called, I think it was called Inner Workings or something like that. Actually, go watch it. I think it's called Inner Workings.
Inner Workings?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's this guy and it's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon?
It's a cartoon. Yeah. It's actually really good. It's like 5 minutes. And it's this guy who is in this like row of cubicles and he's sitting at a desk and he punches in and he's a little robot drone like with everybody else. He looks the same. And then it actually shows his mind and his heart and his stomach and how they like want him to get out of this situation. And anyways, he starts listening to his heart and listening to his mind. And then he finds meaning and purpose in his work. And then he goes back into the same work environment, but he influences everybody else to think about it differently and to approach it differently. It's a good little short clip. And I think that's right. You know, you got to find meaning and significance in the work that you're doing. And if you do, I don't think you're going to have a hard time getting out of bed, because there are certain things that you don't have a hard time getting out of bed for, right? Like if you're excited about the next day because you have a project or a task or a vacation or whatever, you don't have to be convinced to get out of bed.
Yeah.
You don't even have to set your alarm. So what does that tell you? It tells you that maybe you're just not as excited about life as you could be if you put some more emphasis on it.
I like that. Any little tips other than that, like little strategies or anything like that? Or because you mentioned some of these things before, like put the alarm clock you can put it on
the
bed,
get
your workout clothes
you.
ready.
Yeah. I mean, those just the basics that everybody knows, like put it away from you so you actually have to get out of bed.
We've had
I was going to say Jocko's got a great little app that you can use for your alarm tone. That's pretty scary.
Yell at
scary, actually. So use that, whatever. You guys all know the little tips and tricks, but I think the bigger problem is not the tips and tricks. It's the underlying like root cause of the issue.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing that we get in the Iron Council and Tyson's in the IC, use your team a little bit too. Create some accountability there to help each other out. It changes things when that's on your battle plan and your battle plan is up by 5:30 and you're reporting back to your team and having accountability of whether you're getting up at 5:30. That kind of comes into play. And I've even seen some guys call each other at 5:35. Mm-hmm. So if your ringer's on and you're still in bed, you're going to wake your wife up. So you better get up and get into the living room or somewhere else in the house so you can take that phone call, and validate that you're up and going. So but use your team too. That's one of the benefits of being in the Iron Council.
Well, and another thing on that level of accountability is there's a guy, I haven't been over the past 2.5 weeks now, training jiu-jitsu, unfortunately, but I train with Brody Cousineau, and we were going every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. And we were to be at the gym at 6:00. Like, that's accountability, because it was
Yeah.
only me and him. So if I didn't show up, he was by himself. If he didn't show up, I was by myself. So
Yep.
that level of accountability, no, and plus I like jujitsu, but even if I didn't, that level of accountability was crucial in making sure
That one
hey,
morning
man.
you don't want to go, you're like, I can't leave him high and dry. He's sitting at the gym waiting for me.
And I remember like texting, like, hey, are you still going to the gym or whatever? And hoping that he would say, no, I can't because of whatever. And he's like, yep, I'm on my way right now. I'm like, crap. But that added level of accountability is huge. So huge.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good for both of you. And it levels up both parties, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, man.
Justin King, I work as a retail manager in a grocery store. I run a team of 19 individuals. Do you have any tips to help maintain a positive and productive environment when your team is beginning to fatigue and show signs of faltering in the face of COVID-19 issue?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this question. I thought a lot about just inspiring and motivating people in general. And I've been
Families,
families,
workers, yeah.
even members of the Iron Council specifically. A lot of guys have downtime. Like, how can we be more involved and get them more engaged? Give people responsibility. I've found that that's the best thing that you can do. The more responsibility you can give to other people and get them included in the process. Because look, here's what you've probably been doing to some degree. They're employees, so they're just following orders. That's all they're doing. They're carrying out orders for the most part. Some people are going to be more motivated or more bought into the process, but for the most part, they're just carrying out orders, which is good. I mean, that serves its purpose, and you have to have those types of employees. But I'm kind of wondering if you, because we've done this in the Iron Council, and I'll explain a couple little strategies that you can use. If you can involve them in the process of growth, you can give somebody a responsibility. Maybe it's a new segment of the grocery store, like, hey, you have the deli, we need to rearrange some things. Even if you don't need to rearrange something, maybe you just rearrange it just to reinvigorate the staff and the crew. And you use this opportunity. Look, there's no better time than right now to experiment and test new things in a grocery store or other situations or work environments that you may be in, because the risk is low. I mean, sales are down, people who are coming in are down. You're not going to lose a bunch of money because you experiment. Like, people have to go in. The demand is high, the supply is low. Like, this is a great time to actually experiment. And if you could maybe take somebody who's been with you for a long time, maybe they've exhibited some sort of leadership capacity or skill set, and you could give them some assignments that you let them figure it out. Hey, we need to do something with a deli. Can you figure this out and maybe rearrange or take care of some things? Man, that's going to reinvigorate that individual. They're going to be excited about it.
There's a quote, and this seems related to the comment earlier, but there's a quote. It's one of the, I'm going to slaughter it, but the quote goes something to the extent of, if you want to change someone's behavior, change their position. I think that's kind of tied to this, is give them responsibility,
Yes.
which kind of goes back to the question about you and your wife, is like, show some trust, believe in them, give them an opportunity to prove themselves. Like, yeah, that's one of the best ways to elevate. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It also goes back to the getting out of bed thing. Like, if they know they have to go into work and it's boring and monotonous and they're just carrying out orders, like, they're not going to be excited about that. You wouldn't be excited about that. No. So find a way to get them involved. Maybe there's some competitions that you can run amongst each other. Look, I know this sounds silly. I really do. I get it. But I'm telling you, something like this might work. Set up some sort of obstacle course in your grocery store, or like a relay race, and split up your crew in half and say, all right, this half, you're going to run the course first, and you have to find these groceries. Here's your list, and you find them, and you got to navigate the store this way, and we're going to record your time. And we're going to run in 2-man teams. Yeah. And like, that sounds silly, but that's awesome, totally man. Yeah. That's totally fun, right? One thing that I've been doing in the Iron Council is just putting out a couple of polls inside of our the Foundry, which is the platform we use. Just putting out a couple of polls because I like the feedback. It's good for me. But then also, people are engaging, right? They're able to give their feedback, give some input, share some comments and thoughts about their experience, and little things like that are helpful. So I would do some sort of a competition. I would give people responsibility, and then I'd find a way to get people engaged.
Totally. Yeah. And for you companies that are remote and everyone's like maybe feeling like they're disconnected because their teams aren't used to working remote, even doing silly surveys like, okay, let's see everyone's workspace. Mm-hmm. take a snapshot of your workspace today, right? And people get creative and funny. Like we did this a few days ago, and one guy takes a picture and his laptop's on a stack of toilet paper, right? And then everyone's like, hey, what's your address? And everyone's kind of joking around because they want to go rob his house for toilet paper. And then even silly things like childhood favorite toy, and share in pictures only, So there's lots of little fun scenarios. One thing that came to mind, and this is a quote that I was reading the other day, and I think it's related to kind of Justin's question. I wrote it down here, and it's by Seneca, and it says, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than reality." And so, and I think we could look at our faltering employees as why. Are they truly affected, or is this more like perception and imagination and, and just kind of all the noise around things? And maybe sometimes we just need to be focusing on the right thing. And that is the silver lining or the opportunities that are placed before us, whether it's, hey, now let's revamp this store and do things that we've never been able to do. Why? Because we're slow. Like, let's take advantage of the moment. Let's not focus on what's outside of our control.
Yeah, for sure.
Luke Watts, what is the most challenging quadrant of your battle plans this quarter? Why was it important to keep pushing in this area with all the changes we currently face at home and at work? Challenges like no work, homeschooling because schools are shut down, isolation from kids and friends and family.
So what is the most challenging aspect of my battle plan?
Yeah, what quadrant is the most challenging for you in this quarter, and why focus on it? Why focus on that thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've got it pulled up here right now. My battle plan is very practical and pragmatic this quarter. So, for example, my calibration objective is to complete our barn build out. I've got to demolition some areas. I've got to rebuild a couple things. We've got to build some banisters and some railing. That could spill over into the business side of things as well. But I do this because it helps me stay grounded and it helps me to focus on just that. So it focuses my attention. I just enjoy figuring these things out. So that's my calibration objective. And I also have, and it's not written down here, but also the objective to complete, in addition to the barn build out, is finish and finalize my gym, my training and workout gym. So that's my calibration objective. My connection objective is to have on and be on 6 high caliber podcasts. So I will go on 6 highly influential, high caliber podcasts. I will have 6 high caliber guests on my podcast in the next 12 weeks. And I have some benchmarks for what that actually looks like. So that it,
and just measurable. To clarify, the AMAs with me don't count, guys. He's looking for something a little bit more, grand.
Exactly. Cause these are like, so
mediocre.
I'm past that. So we need to continue to level up. My condition objective, 15% body fat. And then my contribution objective is to launch our achievements and advancement initiative inside of the Iron Council. So everything this week or this month, or this quarter is very, very pragmatic. I don't think that there's one more challenging than the other. All of them are going to require a lot of time, a lot of attention, a lot of discipline, structure, and I'm working on each one of these every single day. For example, my barn build out in the gym is an hour per day. And my connection objective is to make 3 daily invites and 3 daily requests for podcast guests. Condition is to do 1 hour of daily exercise. And then my contribution objective to launch the initiative is to work on it at least 30 to 45 minutes per day. So it's pretty intensive what I want to do and what I want to accomplish over the next quarter.
Yeah.
Was there a follow-up question to it, or?
No, just maybe if there's one that was more challenging, which you answered, that they're kind of, you're maintaining that balance.
I will say that most people, in my experience, struggle with the calibration objective. So the connection,
it's the elusive one sometimes.
It is, yeah. Because if you look at, for example, connection objective, it's easy to quantify. Okay, I got to fix or work on this relationship, right? So it's quantifiable. Condition, physical health. Everybody always has physical health goals. It's not. it's simple, right? It's not like easy to actually complete.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you would
easy
have
to
it done.
define.
It's
Yeah.
easy to define, correct?
Yeah.
And then your contribution objective, becoming a man of value, can center around money or earning a new credential or designation, developing a new skill, very tangible. But calibration, which is mental, emotional, and spiritual health, it's elusive, right? Like you said, I like that word. It's very elusive. It's hard to quantify. It's hard to like pin down. And so men really, really struggle in that area. And I'm noticing too, because I've asked these guys to share with us their battle plans, is that what a lot of people will do is they'll share their tactics and think that that's an objective. For example, let's take the 15% body fat objective. The primary tactic is 1 hour of daily exercise. Okay, so what a lot of people will do is they'll put 1 hour of daily exercise as their objective. That's not the objective. The objective is to beat a 15% body fat, or to run a marathon, or to lift X amount of weight. The way, the tactic, the way you go about doing it is the tactic, is the thing that you're doing on a daily basis in order to accomplish whatever it is you're after. So you have to build this the right way, and you actually have to have something that you're striving for. But how do you quantify, I want to be more mindful?
I know.
That's great. Like
tough.
I think that's a good thing to consider, but like what specifically does that mean? Maybe that means that you take a course or you complete a course on a certain type of meditation, or you're going to complete the Bible, right? In this quarter, my goal is to finish the Bible. Okay, well, what do you need to do in order for that to happen? Then you start working backwards. I need to read 20 pages a day or whatever it comes out to. So you have to have this objective, and then you have the tactics that allow you to get to that point. Yeah. So spend some time on that calibration objective, because that's where most men struggle.
Yeah. I actually, one of my quadrants, I would say, is more challenging this quarter for sure. And it's on contribution. I'm assuming that our economy is going to take a dump, and I'm going to be affected by it. And we'll probably be affected from a company perspective. And so I'm actually taking the objective to actually increase revenues in spite of that. And I purposely chose that as my objective, primarily because it kind of goes back to, what's the quote by Viktor Frankl, where it's like, when you no longer can change your circumstance, you're forced to change yourself.
Yes.
And I'm seeing this as an opportune time to say, hey, let's pivot, let's adjust, let's figure out, how do we ensure that we are somewhat recession proof? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the different types of projects that we focus on, or the different type of clients that we focus on, or do we do some internal IP development for a given product, and you know what I mean, and those kind of things. And so I'm intentionally focused on that contribution, with the idea that I know this is going to be harder probably in this quarter than it has been in the past. And so that's one area I'm focusing on.
That's great. I mean, it's good to be aware of what could possibly come up over the next 12 weeks as well, so you can create the battle plan that's going to work for you.
Yeah.
Just make sure on that, that instead, and I'm sure you've already done this, but just to reiterate and let the guys know who are listening, is increased revenue is a worthy goal.
Yeah.
But it's not as powerful as it could be as if it was increased revenue by 30% each month.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you've done that. So I just want to make sure that it would be like saying, well, I want to be healthy.
Yeah.
Okay. What does healthy mean? And then the problem with even that, let's take the healthy aspect. Well, healthy means eating the right food and being this percent body fat and being able to do this many pull-ups and being able to deadlift this amount and run this fast. And there's like 1,000 things that you can choose that would quantify being healthy. Great. Pick one. Pick one and focus on that one. And by the way, if you get faster, let's say you want to get fat, you want to run a marathon. So you get faster, you get your legs stronger for running, you build up your cardio. Like, that's going to help you get better at pull-ups. That's going to help you lose weight. That's going to help you all these other things as well. But pick one to focus on and get very, very specific. Don't say you want to make more money. Say exactly how much money you want to make. Don't say you want to lose weight or be healthy. Say exactly how much weight you want to lose or what body fat percentage you want to be, right? So the more crystallized you can be, the better off it's totally going to be for you.
And the other tip I'd add, and we do this in the Iron Council, is we have these gates, and I don't know if they're or milestones, I think is the exact verbiage that we use.
Checkpoints.
So yeah, checkpoints. Jeez.
Come on,
so
man.
4 weeks in.
Take that shirt off.
I know.
Put a different shirt on until you earn that Order of Man shirt back.
Checkpoints, not goals, objectives, not tasks, tactics.
That's right,
checkpoints, not milestones. All right.
Right.
So checkpoints, we have 2 in the 12-week period. So 4 weeks in, are you projecting the right direction to achieve 15% body fat? If not, we pivot and we adjust. You know, and that's the benefit of those checkpoints. So then that way we are ensuring we're doing the things that are effective enough to get us to those objectives.
Did you see the video that I posted yesterday about adjusting fire?
I keep forgetting to follow you on Instagram.
It's not on Instagram. It's in the Foundry in the Iron Council.
I didn't see it. When did
go
you post it?
Go watch yesterday at some time, maybe midday. What's watch
the video?
It's called Adjust Fire.
Adjust Fire.
Yeah,
okay.
And I'll probably record it and make it available to the public because it's really important. So in the military, I was in an artillery unit, and long story short, our job was to ensure that if we got a call for enemy movement or enemy positions, that we got the guns pointed in the right direction, we got them firing the right ammunition, et cetera, right? The right charges, all that stuff. And occasionally we would miss a target, right? As an artillery unit, we would miss the target. And you think about, okay, well, why would you miss the target? Well, there's really 3 reasons that you could miss the target. Number 1, you have bad intel, right? The forward observers called something in, it wasn't accurate, and therefore we missed the target. We didn't accomplish the mission. That's number 1. Number 2, the target moved. Right, the target moved. The enemy position was right there. They were in a convoy. They moved over here, and therefore we were too late, too slow, whatever. The enemy moved, and we missed. The third one is operator error. So we got the right information. We got good intel. Enemy's still there. We input it in wrong. We did something wrong. We passed down the wrong information. Somebody pulled the wrong charge, whatever, and therefore we missed because operator error. This is the same with life in your battle plan. It's one of those 3 things. When you're doing a battle plan, it's if you miss, it's because bad intel. You didn't have all the facts at hand, and that's your fault, by the way. It's nobody else's fault. Yes, yeah. You need, and maybe if it's maybe not your fault, it's your responsibility.
Yeah, you should
say it that way.
Research necessary to confirm. Yeah,
right. So if there's bad intel, that's your responsibility. So talk with coaches, talk with mentors, get all the information that you can to make sure you hit your objective. If the target moved, welcome to life. Right? Priorities change, things change. Coronavirus, a global pandemic pops up, and the target moves, and now you need to
pivot and adjust.
You need to pivot, adjust fire, right? The third component, operator error. You know, maybe you said you were going to do this every single day, but you only completed that 60% of the time. That's your fault. That's operator error. You messed up. That's why you didn't hit your objective. You got to track this stuff. Then what we would do is in the artillery unit, if we missed a target, occasionally then the forward observer would call in and say, okay, well, we need to adjust fire. Here's your new coordinates, or here's your new information that you need, and we would call and adjust fire. So we would call to the guns, and the guns would take the previous information, and we weren't giving them a bunch of new information. We were just giving them the changes. So take what you have and adjust fire to what you currently have. It's a quicker way of doing it, right? It's the same thing with the battle plan. When you come up short, operator error, bad intel, targets moved, you've got to pivot, you've got to adjust fire, you've got to change, and then you got to fire again. So this is the power of having these checkpoints in place. Because now you observe, okay, I was supposed to be right now at 16% body fat, and I'm at 19. So what's going on? Operator intel, operator error, bad intel, or enemy or target moved. Right? And then you adjust fire from there, and then you correct it, and you get better moving forward.
How would you guys catch operator error? Would they call in and say reshoot, confirm position, or recalculate, or you know what I'm saying?
We would say,
or you just assume, yeah.
So the forward observer would call in and say, hey, you're long, right? Like you missed by this many clicks, right? Or whatever, right? You're long. Yeah. Here's where it landed. So we just say, oh, okay, well, let's take this information and fire again.
Yeah.
So we'd fire again, and then the forward observer would call in. This is akin to the after action review.
Yeah.
Right? Did you hit the target? Nope. Okay. Well, what do we need to do? Did we get good intel? Did we mess up on our end? Did the position move? And you find all of that stuff out through the after action review.
Love it.
This is why it's called a battle plan, because it actually works in battle.
Jeff Bowman, I'm prepared well to survive during this crisis. When something like this happens again, what are some ideas to not just survive, but to take advantage in a positive way and thrive during a crisis?
Double down on everything, right? So if financially you're all set and you're taken care of, you can survive, then double down so that you can thrive and that you can serve and that you can give back to organizations, and you can pay for other people's supplies that they may need or might need help with. If it comes to your career, like, okay, well, you can get by because you can do it digitally, but are there other products that you can introduce? Are there new ways of looking at your business and your growth? We've got a guy in the Iron Council, his name's Nick Farr, and some other guys as well, who are moving in Nick's case, his church organization online. Like, how do we make this digital? Because he's got to adjust now, right? He's used to meeting in the congregation, face-to-face, person-to-person. It's not available, right? So he's adjusting and he's fixing it, and now he's doing it digitally. So look at your resources, look at your provisions, and look for opportunities to serve outside of you. That would go to your family, and then outside of that, which would be your neighborhood, outside of that community, outside of that state, and so on. You just keep doubling down on these and keep putting yourself in a better position. Also look for situations that may come up that would derail you if something were to come up. So you're trying to really anticipate what could go well, what could go wrong. If this is going to go wrong, then what do I need to do to fix it ahead of time? These are all ways to put yourself in a better position. And then you look at it, like, look at your current provisions. You're like, oh man, I wish I had fill in the blank. Well, shore that up right now. So that way, if we come across this or anything else in the future, you'll be better equipped and better able to serve.
I think a perfect example of this is what Origin's doing right now in regards to pivoting and providing and creating another product. One, it's good for them from a business perspective, but they're also providing value and a service to those that need a particular product that was never on their radar from producing.
Yeah, three weeks ago, maybe even 2 weeks ago, this wasn't even a twinkle in their eye. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't thinking about this, but Pete's a visionary, and he has the ability to pivot quickly, and he's got the means and resources and availability to do it. And he pulled out old sewing machines that he had stored that he wasn't using, and they shut down a couple of lines. They added a couple of new things, and I saw the way that they were timing out their runs and how they could speed them up. And they went from making the first day 700 masks to I want to say over 3,000 a day now. So it's pretty incredible. Yeah. Talk about adjusting fire.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
Dennis Morris, what are your thoughts on the free money the government is sending to most of the U.S. population? I've heard some impassionate views on either side. Outside of politics, what are some wise ways to make that money work for you? So an opinion about it first, and then
it's not free.
Advantage of it.
It's just it's been paid for, right? Yeah. And it has to be paid back in certain circumstances, I believe. I don't know all the ramifications, but based on what I do know, it's a 0% loan essentially is what it is. So it's not free money. It's a 0% loan.
It's debt
on our own money.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It's not weird. It's just corrupt. It's a Ponzi scheme. Look, I mean, it's $1,200, right? And I think if I understand correctly, up to $75,000, you get that. If at $75,000, it starts phasing out at $99, I believe, $1,000, it's not even available to you. So, I mean, I don't want to, like, I'm not going to receive any money. All right. So, but I don't want to assume that just because I'm in that position that other people, that it won't help other people. But I mean, that's a mortgage payment. Right? $1,200 is your mortgage payment. So, okay, so they paid your mortgage for a month. Now what? Like, how do you put food on the table, and how do you make your car payment, and how do you, like, all the other expenses? How do you keep your house warm? These are other considerations. And by the way, I'm not saying so give people more money. I'm just saying this is not a permanent solution, and it's not gonna be very long before the government wants to do another $2 or $3 or $4 trillion quote unquote stimulus package. This is not a solution. I don't think it's even intended to be, but it's a dangerous proposition. If you really wanted to help people, just stop taxing them so much. Be more efficient with government spending. Realize that it's not your money. Realize that you're at the service of the population, not your own pocketbook, which a lot of these lawmakers, senators, congressmen are doing. You know, they're engaged in insider trading at the expense of those who don't have access to the same information. They're manipulating the stock markets, and then they're taking advantage of the manipulations that they themselves created. This is complete bullshit, and it's dangerous. Like, we're in a very dangerous time economically. So I mean, what's the solution? I don't know what the solution is, but I know that giving somebody $1,000 is not going to do anything at all. Yeah. So this is a reason why, guys, we need to be financially solvent. Like, we need to make sure our money's in order. We need to have savings. We need to have investments. We need to have cash on hand. We can't be up to our eyeballs in debt, because when things like this happen, and they will, this is not going to be the last time this happens. You're gonna be okay. You're not gonna be stressed out. You're gonna be able to lead effectively. You're gonna be able to take some downtime away from work, or pivot, or have the means to be able to start a new organization or a company. This is why we do it. Yeah. So I don't agree with it, and I would like to see a plan, or at least a timeline for what we plan on doing to reopen the economy and start boosting these things up. I think it would be better. And I know there was some money that went to businesses, and some people have argued against that. I mean, businesses are run by people. Businesses have employees. People have
jobs when a company runs. Yeah.
So it's good. It's a good thing. I don't think that we should prop a bunch of companies up. You know, I think this is a great moment to experience some pain and then learn from it. But if we aren't willing to experience the consequence of the pain, then we're just going to fall into the same trap again. And when this thing is all over, it's going to be even worse the next time around. So stop giving money, especially, like, why are we giving billions and billions of dollars to illegal immigrants, to other organizations that have nothing to do with propping up and boosting up the economy, like the Kennedy Center or something like that, or the Institute for Fine Arts. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we doing this? It's ridiculous. It's dangerous. This is why it's so important. You know, that book Sovereignty is actually pretty timely. When I talk about sovereignty, I'm also talking about financial sovereignty, right? Not being enslaved to financial institutions or having to pay back government loans. Like, this stuff's ridiculous. It's very, very dangerous.
Well, and there's not an opportunity here for us to learn and pivot and grow. You know, we talked about Origin earlier. Like, if money just got thrown at them, then they wouldn't have been forced to kind of go, hey, let's innovate. Let's provide a different service. Like, exactly. That's what we should be doing is, okay, we're inefficient. We probably spend too much money on things. So let's cut our budgets. Let's become more efficient. And let's maybe look at a different market, or how do we pivot as a company so then that we're not greatly affected, you know, by this particular circumstance. And what I find interesting, and what kind of gets me riled up, I made a post on this on Facebook like a few days ago, is like, far too often I'm seeing way too many posts of like, hey, what episodes on Netflix are you guys watching? And what, you know, and it's like, I don't have a job right now, so I'm binging on Netflix. It's like, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
Like, if you don't have a job right now, guess what? You may not have a job next month or the month after that. So what you should be doing is figuring out how you're going to get a job, right? Whether it's you starting a side hustle of some sort, getting a new skill set, you know, trued up in, I don't know, learning or whatever you need to do. That's what you should be focusing on. Yeah. Not not taking a break and saying, oh, well, and then waiting for this check to come into the mail so you can pay your mortgage. Like, no, you should figure out how to pay your mortgage way before that check ever shows up. And you shouldn't even need a check for that matter.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Dude, come on, guys. All right.
No, this is why this work is so important. I mean, we've been talking about it for 5 years, and too many people have done nothing over the past 5 years. They listen to the podcast and they send me messages and they're like, bro, I really love your podcast and all the things that you talk about. It's really cool. And then it's like, these are the guys who are struggling right now because they never changed or implemented anything that we ever talked about over the past 5 years to improve their lives. And now they're like, oh man, I wish I would have done something. I'll do it tomorrow after the Tiger show's over.
Or once COVID's over, once the economy's back to normal, I'm going to get myself in a position so I'm more prepared next time.
Right.
Get prepared now. Yeah. All right. Gabe Carrillo, I understand that this is not a religious podcast, but I and quite few others here are Christians and hold the Apostle Paul to a pretty high regard. And I'm having a hard time understanding Paul's statement. Quote, that is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 10. As it relates to manliness and weakness, what does this look like in our lives as godly men who strive to be strong and minimize our weaknesses?
So I don't know the entire context of this passage, and I don't pretend to be a biblical scholar. I'm a Christian. I believe in God and in Jesus Christ and the Holy Ghost. But I'm not a scholar, a biblical scholar by any means. But what I interpret that as being is that Paul is talking about challenge and strife and difficulty and obstacles. And when he is weak because of the challenging circumstances he finds himself in, this goes back to our last question, he's able to shore up those weaknesses and make himself strong. A lot of guys won't accurately evaluate their performance because they're worried about what it looks like. And I get that, but it's damaging to your ego and your sense of pride in a lot of cases. And if you won't look at it, then what you've done is you've essentially put a blindfold on to some threats that could potentially come up that would derail you. If you're not willing to look at your bank account because you know how bad it is, well, then you're going to go into bankruptcy and you're not even going to know what hits you. If you're not willing to jump on the scale and actually look at what the weight is and evaluate your health status, then at some point you're probably going to contract diabetes and you're going to die prematurely. But it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks and blindside you because you have the blindfold on. So what Paul's talking about here is to not look at hardship and heartache and difficult times as a curse, but actually look at those things as a blessing. What opportunities arise from these circumstances? What can I learn? How can I get better? How can I improve? And how can I serve myself and others in all ways, even during these difficult times? To sum it up nicely, Bruce Lee says, I think it was Bruce Lee said, maybe it's not, do not pray for an easier life, pray for the opportunity to make yourself stronger, something like that, or being able to more adequately deal with your life. And that's what he's talking about. You're not wishing for an easier life. You're working towards making yourself stronger so that you can deal with the situations as they arise.
Totally. And I think when Paul said, like, when I am weak, I am strong, I think a lot of that comes down to humility of saying, hey, guess what? I am weak here. This is the area where I need to improve. And to your point, Ryan, that gives us the mindset necessary to say, okay, now I need to true up in this space and make improvements. But
right.
Without that, right, we're not going to have the humility to admit that we even need to focus on that area.
Yeah.
Just ignore it.
Imagine if you thought you were amazing at everything.
You would not do anything. Yeah.
Well, you would do it, but you'd look like a fool and you'd fall on your face and you would never accomplish anything. Right. Yeah. Or when a real challenge came up, you'd get your ass kicked because you were in delusion. You thought you were prepared, but you weren't, because you really weren't willing to look at what was actually happening and what was actually going on. So be humble, be open and receptive to your shortcomings and your weaknesses so that you can shore them up. It's not to remain weak, by the way.
Yeah.
There's no virtue or honor in being weak. It seems like the doctrine of popular culture would suggest that.
Yeah.
That if you're weak and you're pathetic and you're a victim, that it's honorable. Yeah. It's not honorable. It's not honorable. It's honorable to recognize it and fix it and make yourself strong. That's where the honor and the virtue comes.
Yeah. John Davies, battle team leader in Europe. He's kind of our Europe battle team leader.
He's not in Europe. John is he in Europe now?
But no, but those guys are all
all in Europe.
It's kind of that Europe group.
Yes, okay.
I call it the Euro battle team.
Because is he in South Korea? He was at one point, and then I think he moved, and maybe he moved back. Anyways,
yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah, South Korea, John. I think. Yeah,
sorry, John. Man. We don't know where you live.
According to John Rohn, we're the average of 5 people you spend most of your time with. Who are these people for you at the moment? To what extent do they reflect who you are?
My wife and my 4 kids are the 5 people I spend the most time with right now. And we're all trapped
Social
inside.
Distancing.
Definitely my wife and my kids. Yeah. Definitely. They're on there.
Yeah.
But in the spirit of the question, you're definitely on there. We have conversations every week, multiple every week. Pete Roberts is on that list. Him and I have conversations every week, usually done on Facebook or Instagram or a call or whatever. Yeah, and then I'm influenced by a lot of other people just on Instagram, social media, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. So what was the follow-up question? Because he said, who are they? So those who they are.
Yeah, and to what extent do they reflect on you?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, I mean, what they do and how they show up is a direct reflection of who I am and how I show up and how I behave and how I act and what I do. So, yeah, I don't know to what percentage or how you even calculate that, but I mean, anecdotally, that has been a huge source of growth and inspiration in my life. And I've been very, very deliberate about who I allow into my circle, both in person and digitally as well. And if I start following somebody online who, I'm not inspired by anymore, maybe at one point I was, and I've outgrown that or changed or whatever, then I stop following that individual because I don't want that in my life. I only want the best. I only want the things I'm inspired by and the things I'm motivated by, because I just don't have time for negativity and mediocre results. So it's a huge, huge component of my life. And it takes a lot of intentionality to make sure you continue to level this up.
Yeah. And there's so much to this conversation, I think. Just us reading these questions every week is just inspiring in itself.
Yes.
Because it forces us to ponder and think about how would I answer, or how should I answer this question? Mm-hmm. Or where am I currently? Where am I weak in this area? Where do I need to become strong? And just the conversation that you have on the interview shows on Tuesdays, your Friday field notes, the conversations we have in the Iron Council, just the conversation and being part of it, whether it's responding or even reading the question, is inspiring because it forces us to reflect and see how we are showing up as men in our own families, even if some of these exact questions or scenarios aren't exactly the same. It really forces us to ponder how we're showing up. And I think that's probably one of the greatest impacts of being involved in the Order of Man and Iron Council is really just being around like-minded men that have these kind of conversations. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Vadim Romanitz. Having spent time with good supervisors and amazing friends in the past, I've managed to apply useful principles that were demonstrated to me. When taking the lead for a while, I found my own direction and example aren't always bringing the best out of people and collaborating with me. In fact, my own leadership has led to resentment, sometimes in work scenarios, other times in recreational settings. What's the right way to go about giving credit where it's due when you know someone else has stepped in on your behalf? The most selfless people will change things for us without being asked and get left out, being recognized for it.
Always err on the side of giving too much credit. That's it. That's the answer.
Always.
Always err on the side of giving credit to other people and taking responsibility for yourself. So if you fall short in leadership or the project, then you take upon that responsibility. I did not accurately communicate this. I did not hold up my end of the deal, but Kip really did all of these things, and here's what he did, and here's how he showed up. That is leadership, to be able to give credit where credit is due. And if you're going to make a mistake on one side or the other about credit, err on the side of giving away too much credit to other people, and just have faith that it will play out, that it will work out, that you're going to build goodwill among other people, your teammates, your colleagues, your coworkers, your supervisors, and that they will be more willing to serve you in the future. If you give credit to people, they want to do it for you because most people don't give credit.
Yeah.
Right. So, and when you don't give credit, you're undermining that the idea that people will work for you and be led by you and do what you say and have credibility and influence with them. So always err on the side of giving away credit when things go right.
I like that. Yeah. I'll even kind of, and maybe it's negative. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this of almost giving inaccurate credit, where maybe if you and I worked on a project over the weekend, I don't even recognize that I don't even mention that I worked on it. I just say, hey, Ryan did an awesome job this weekend, push through, and not even mention anything. Because why? Like, why even
I don't agree with that.
Up? No,
because if you're lying, and it is a lie,
then it does it discredit the recognition that you're giving.
Right. Because look, let's say it's you and me, and you give away all this credit to me. Mm-hmm. I know, right? Like, I know that wasn't reality. And so although I might be willing to accept the praise for it, deep down, you just sowed a seed of deceit.
Yeah.
And then I might think a couple of different things. I might think you're weak. That's one potential outcome, is that, oh, Kip's weak, I can walk all over him. Right? Because he's not willing to, or when you tell me other things, I might question, is that true? Because he has a history of bending and manipulating the truth.
Yeah.
I might also wonder what your angle is, right? Because now you're talking about something that I know isn't reality. I'm like, what's his game? Like, what's his angle? Mm-hmm. What's he trying to do right here? And there's a little bit of like trust issue with that. So when you're giving praise and credit, don't give it broadly, give it specifically. Hey, my team, oh, you guys did such a wonderful job, is not as good as saying, Kip, this one thing that you did on this one project, it was amazing and it turned out so good, and here was the result, and man, Kip was responsible for that, and that was very powerful.
Yeah.
Now, you don't need to bring up the other things, but be very specific, because then I'm not bullshitting. You're like, no, that's actually true. I did do that, and it did produce this result. So
yeah, and I think that lets me know, okay, Ryan really values that thing. Right. When you said, hey, you did an amazing job on that project.
What does that mean?
Okay, awesome. But if you told me specific details, then I can say, okay, I'll remember that next project and do those things.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say you and I were working on a project, and I'm leading this project, and I give you an assignment or a task, and you need to complete it. And there's elements of it that you do really, really well, and elements of it that you didn't do quite so well. So I'm going to give you praise in public, and I'm going to give you constructive feedback in private. So I might say, hey, Kip did this thing and it was so amazing, and here's how he worked it, and here was the result of it. And then that's what you do in public. And then, hey, Kip, privately, can I chat with you about something? You reiterate what he did extremely well. So, hey, you did that one thing, it was really, really well. I'd like to give you some feedback on one element that I think we can shore up on the next go around. Do you mind if I share that with you? And I give you that constructive feedback privately. Unless the team needs to hear it, right? But even if the team needs to hear it, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I'm taking
You're taking ownership. I have failed to communicate this to you guys.
Right. So I might privately behind closed doors say, Kip, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And then in public, I'd say, hey guys, one area where we messed up, we really need to improve. And I need to make sure I do a great job of communicating this to you guys in the future, is this thing that you and I talked about, but I'm not going to throw you under the bus. I'm going to throw myself under the bus.
Got it.
Because you and I have an understanding already.
Yeah.
Now I'm not lying, right? And you know what happened behind closed doors, and you actually think highly of me, better of me, because I was willing to talk with you privately, but then publicly take the fall myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Show some common respect for that individual at the same time.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's take one more maybe, because I think we're winding down on time here.
Dalton Pribble, how do you use your faith in Christ to lead this movement? Do you ever find a time where your religion contradicts what you're doing for Order of Man?
This is an interesting, it's a good question. But my spiritual beliefs permeate every aspect of my life, that it would be difficult to say this is the way that it impacts my life. It doesn't. I mean, it's just so broad and deep into what I'm doing that it's hard to distinguish that it's, oh, this one thing. You know, I pray, I have faith, we read the scriptures, we go to church, I ponder on all this stuff. And because I do that, it's just ingrained into what we do. Yeah. The answer about does it ever contradict? Not that I can think of. Just do the right thing.
Does it contradict you?
Just do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's it. When you're faced with a difficult decision or a circumstance, just do the right thing. Oh, that's a cop-out. No, it isn't. We all know what the right thing is. You know what the right thing is. In any circumstance, you know what the right thing is.
Well, and if you don't mind me sharing this, I was sharing this with my son the other day, and I said, and we were talking about choosing the right thing, doing the right things. And I said, and by the way, the minute that you start having a conversation with yourself about whatever something is, that's when you pause and then you just do it.
Right.
Because you're trying to lie to yourself.
Right. You're trying to talk yourself out of it.
You're starting the dialogue going, oh, well, this. The minute you start that dialogue, you just hit the pause button and just go do the right thing. Don't even have the conversation. Don't even entertain it, because that's the telltale sign of you coming up with some excuse and justifiable reason of why you shouldn't be doing, or why you shouldn't do that correct thing. That's probably difficult to do.
And I would suggest that you err on the side of giving other people the benefit of the doubt. You know, like we've had guys, for example, in the Iron Council where, you know, they paid to be a member and they said, oh, you know, I resigned 2 months ago and I kept getting billed for it or whatever. And it's like, where did you resign? Like, did you message me? Did you? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I forgot to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I meant to do it and I never did it. And you're like, so I guess technically, yes, I could probably justify not doing a refund, but I'm like, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just refund the 2 months or whatever, whether they're lying or telling the truth? Like it's irrelevant. Just refund them the 2 months. You build some goodwill and it's like, hey, we'll get this taken care of for you. And just have faith it's all going to work out. You know, you're out a few bucks, but I'd rather maintain my honor and integrity. And you know what? If that person stole from you, well, you're not responsible for that person's actions. You're responsible for yours. So
totally.
Just do the right thing.
Well, and what's interesting about that, Ryan, is I think most guys don't like being like, let's use that example. If you think someone's quote unquote stealing from you, most of the time it doesn't have to do with the money. It's more tied to like this pride or this thought process of like, someone took advantage of me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Good point. Good point.
And it's more about that than it is really the money. And I think we need to kind of put ourselves in check a little bit. I mean, when I was separated from my wife and we kind of dated on and off. And even then I remember I had some friends that were like, dude, what are you doing? You're a sucker. Like whenever she, falls out of a relationship, she comes going and you're a puppy dog and you know what I mean? And whatever. And I really thought about it over the time. And I thought, you know what, when I die, I don't think my maker's going to say, hey, Kip, you know what? You were too forgiving and you were a sucker on earth and you gave too much opportunity to people and they took advantage of you.
Right.
Right. Like that's not going to be the problem. Right. That's not going to be a problem. And it's kind of ironic because in the world, we do that. Right. It's like, oh, don't be a sucker and don't get taken advantage of. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's scenarios by which we need to protect ourselves and have boundaries, but in the same breath, it's like, is it all that bad for you to give someone the benefit of the doubt and then take advantage of it?
Right. I mean, don't allow yourself to be abused. Yeah. That's the point, right? Like, don't like if somebody continues to do it, and here's the other thing. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you need to expose yourself to that pain or being taken advantage of again. Like you can forgive somebody and not invite them back into your life, right? Totally. And protect yourself. Those two aren't mutually exclusive. So yes, I mean, offer forgiveness, offer some grace, and at the same time, keep yourself protected and safe because those two can actually go hand in hand.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. But if you fall on the side of like taken advantage of, it's, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily as bad as what our egos tell us it is.
No, our egos definitely play things out for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, let's call it a day. Let's wrap things up.
Yeah. So obviously we've talked about, and let's just be frank, guys, COVID-19, working remote, this, and I can't reiterate this enough. This is the time to become better, man. I mean, we need to focus on opportunities. A lot of us may be having to pivot in our jobs or step up our game. And for a lot of you guys, and I really do think this, is you eliminate structure from people's lives, like the responsibility of having to be in the office at 8, guaranteed across the globe, people are sleeping in way more than they ever have.
Oh, for sure.
Are working out less than they ever have. And why? Because structure has been changed a little bit. And guess what? You need self-discipline. And you haven't had to have it for such a long time because there was social obligation of you being in the office by 8. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen anymore. So if you need help in the space of self-discipline, you need accountability, and you need to rub shoulders with like-minded men. That's exactly what we've been doing for the past few years in the Iron Council. So join us there. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council. Or if you just want to connect with us on Facebook and join the other men in that Facebook group, join us at facebook.com/group/Order of Man. The store is still open. Ryan's getting some new hats on the way. Hopefully there's more swag. And that's store.orderofman.com. And of course, to support the podcast, subscribe, check out the YouTube channel. And of course, follow Mr. Mickler on Instagram or Twitter at Ryan Mickler.
That's it. I think we got it.
Michler, however you pronounce it.
Oh, I was going to tell you, your new nickname is Chip. It's now Chip.
Chip.
I sent you that text, didn't I?
Yeah.
So Kip now goes by Chip, guys, just so you know.
Yeah. And Brian Michler and Chip.
Michler. Yep.
Yeah.
The Brian and Chip show. All right, guys, we'll let you get going. We'll be back on Friday, but appreciate you being in this battle. Keep engaged with us. Keep engaged with the rest of the guys in the Order or the Iron Council. It's important. It really is important for you where you're isolated a little bit more. Just stay engaged. Invite other men to be engaged, and we're all in this thing together, directly or indirectly, so let's help each other out. That's the whole purpose of this brotherhood, is to help and serve, so get after it. All right, guys, we'll see you on Friday. Until then, take action. Become the man you are meant to be.